on these little projections called the spinous processes. Called the transverse processes. In the thoracic spine, there's a little surface where that rib attaches in. And then they wrap around, and a lot of the ribs attach into our sternum here. And there's a couple, you can feel them, give a little bit more. They're called false ribs, and that they're kind of floating. They don't attach in there. And then there's a couple more up a little higher than that attach in, kind of not directly to the sternum, but to the other ribs. You can almost feel those. It's kind of where our rib cage rounds up there. So on the front, you have the anterior body. You have the sternum, and there's a lot of the ribs attached by what's called costocartilage. So there's a lot of cartilage that attaches there. And a lot of people will develop problems there and pain in through there. Like when they take a deep breath, they'll feel that there. Any kind of trauma to the area will cause that, or just even bad postures over time. So as we go up from the sternum, you get to the sternal notch, which don't press on it too hard because
you want us to feel this
gag reflex. Yeah, if you want to do the palpation as you're going along. So you get the sternal notch in through here. That's the top of the sternum. And then if you go to either side and go out laterally, that's the collarbone. So otherwise known as the clavicle. And the clavicle is this bone here. And so as we kind of palpate along there, it's that long, thin bone. And as you keep going out, you get to the kind of top of the shoulder. I kind of call it the roof of the shoulder here. And that's formed by where the clavicle meets up with this section here. This whole bone here, this rests on our back. That's the scapula or shoulder blade. And this is called the spine of the scapula. And the spine of the scapula meets up with the clavicle up here, and it's called the acromioclavicular joint or AC joint. This is a common place of injury on people. And it's injured a lot of times if someone takes a fall or does a lot of repeated traumas. There's an exercise called burpees, which is a good exercise, but basically it's like a squat thrust. Like we used to do squat thrusts in gym class. And just repeated traumas through there can actually cause that to separate. And you get what's called a step deformity, where basically the clavicle and the spine of the scapula, this is called the acromion process, they don't line up anymore. And so they're kind of displaced a little. And you can see it on people. They have a little bit of a step deformity. I have a slight one. Yeah. And it's very common.
Children. Like that.
Yep. Yeah, there you go. Like a fall on an outstretched arm. The force gets translated all the way up through here, and usually that pops in through there when that happens.
Can you for a moment turn the thing to face me, like the top of it?
Oh yeah. So this is the spine of the scapula. Mm-hmm. This is the clavicle. Mm-hmm. This is the AC joint here, and these are all ligaments up here.
Yeah.
And that's where you kind of get that dislocation, and you get that kind of that step deformity. It's called. So that if someone has that, they'll feel it a lot of times bearing weight on their arms, especially like going down into a push-up position. So like a low plank, they'll really feel that. That'll be very difficult for them. So if they have a problem with that, that might be something, a lot of the different poses that you have to take into consideration. That step deformity or not necessarily the deformity, because they can have pain there without the deformity, and a lot of times if it's really old, they won't have that much of a problem because it's scarred over so much that it'll be okay. But sometimes that can be difficult for them, and what they need to do is a lot of stabilization and strengthening, and through, we'll go over these muscles later, with the rotator cuff and the scapular stabilizers, which once we go over the bony anatomy, we'll go over the muscles a little bit more.